Welcome to Creative Pursuits. I'm Casey Parlette. I'm a professional sculptor in wood, metal, and stone. And I'm really excited today to be joined by Mayor Mark Orgill. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come out here and talk to me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking a little bit, and I'm glad we got the mics on now because there's a lot to talk about. This one of the reasons that I wanted to kind of sit down and talk with you is there's Laguna Beach is just recently purchased some properties here in the canyon. One of them being the property that my shop is in, and these just a little history on these properties. I mean, these were workspaces that George Burkhart bought and built, I think, years and years ago, and it's kind of been a haven workspace for artists, and that was one of the things George always kind of was a real supporter of all that for a long time. But he passed away, and his kids aren't able to hold on to these properties, and so I really just wanted to have a conversation with you to kind of discuss this project that the city's this endeavor the city's in now with this, and kind of what the goals are of it, and kind of what's some of the pluses and minuses and where it's going and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me, and I'll just give you a bit of background so you understand exactly where I'm coming from when it comes to these spaces and why I think it's important for the city to preserve them. So, years and years ago, I had some properties in the canyon, and I had created some artist spaces. They were live work, but I ran a program through them. There were 4 units, and I ran a program, and then a visiting artist program. And then I also had several units that I had built for Laguna College of Art and Design for their student housing. So this has been, and I was intricately involved when we created the art district down the canyon. So this has been, in my mind, I've been living it for quite some time. And when I ran for council, it was one of my, I shared with the community it was one of the main reasons why I wanted to run, because I was, worried about losing all of the artists in town, just because it's important, I believe, to the community. And a bit ago, before we went live, we talked about, the economic issues and questions people have regarding some of these decisions, and what's the economic equation in all of this. So we can talk about that in a moment. But so I talked about it when I was running for office, and once I got in office, I did ask council if we could, start to research ways to start thinking about what to do with some of these spaces and some of the artists in town, and if we can somehow mitigate the loss of all of that creative talent that we have. And by the way, my wife used to be the president of the Sawdust Festival, so it's kind of a whole family thing, right?
Well, and you also you grew up working with your hands, and you
Yeah.
had a furniture company. I mean,
Exactly.
you've got a long history of working in and around the trades, and
Yeah,
and
I
all
do.
that.
And I have a theory, and I'll share that with you in a moment. I have
Okay.
so much to say, and if I go on a tangent, don't feel
No, that's what this is all about.
reel me in,
Yeah.
because I could talk about this forever, because it just means so much to me. So the idea was, council said, sure, go experiment and look for ways that you can, that these properties could be acquired. And at the same time, the Visit Laguna Beach, which I was a part of years ago, was in the middle of renegotiating their tourist marketing district agreement, which is a self-imposed tax that the guests of the hotels pay, and then that they share 1% of that with the city. So what I was able to do is change that percentage formula and have a chunk of that go toward artist space, not just living, but space, right?
Yeah.
And so that kind of, set the foundation as far as a financial model to move forward. Now the second hurdle was, would the city be willing to loan a land trust money to do the acquisition? So while I was working on all of this, Mr. Burkhart unfortunately passed away, and the properties went on the market. So I didn't know that was going to happen when we started this. I just knew that there was going to be opportunities, because we have all seen them start to disappear in the
Yeah.
canyon. So then it was like, okay, well, now we got to get going, So Oftentimes people say, "Well, Mark, what's the plan? What do you guys have out there?" And uh, you know, with these properties, and they assume there's ambitions to redevelop. Well, the plan was pretty simple for me. It's just to acquire them, to preserve them.
Yeah.
It's that simple. I mean, if these sit the way they are today for the next 20 years, in my view, that's just fine. We don't need to add a second story right away. Now, if the land trust in the future sees some opportunity and they're working with the artist, so be it. That can certainly happen. But the plan is pretty simple. It's to acquire them and hold on to them, to maintain that, the working artist spaces.
Yeah. Well, I think, thank you for giving a little bit of that background on that, because I think also, for people that are listening that aren't from Laguna Beach, that aren't tuned in with all the stuff that's happening here. I mean, Laguna's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, and I've traveled around quite a bit. I mean, it's this coastline here, the community. I mean, there's a lot of things that are incredible about Laguna Beach and the beaches and the people and all of it. And because of that, it's a very desirable place to live. And so, my family, when my family moved here in the 40s after World War II, it was wide open, and there was a lot of open space. It was, I mean, it was very inexpensive compared to today, right? And just because the beauty and the desirability of this place inherently makes it where it becomes very expensive. And so, some of the foundational things in Laguna is the arts and the artists and all in the art colony, and it's kind of known, that's part of the Laguna's branding in a sense is that art factor. But I'll say, I mean, it just as things get more and more expensive, which is kind of happening everywhere, but it's accelerated, I'd say more so here than a lot of
I would
places.
agree with that. Yeah.
It's more and more challenging for artists to be able to find places to work here, to be able to be part of the community. And so as time's gone on, I mean, even in my lifetime, even in my working life as an artist, I've seen it seems like there's less and less other artists that are working here in town, and definitely less and less that are living here in town as well. And so, I think that it's something to, I think what you're looking at is investing in the world that you want to live in, right? I mean, so in a sense, we invest in the world we want to live in. And so for this to be something where the city comes in and tries to figure out ways to mitigate that exodus, because a lot of what's happened with a lot of these workspaces, and again, not every artist needs a shop workspace, but I'll tell you, I tried doing what I do residentially, and at a certain point with the anvil, hammering, blacksmithing, and grinding, I mean, people are going to run you out with torches and pitchforks
Yeah.
after a little while. It doesn't take long, and this kind of work that I do is, it's dirty and loud, and it's very it's just is what it is, and so it requires a light industrial space like this to be able to actually do it. And so, I'm very thankful that these spaces are here. And when George died and when this place went up available, um, I mean, again, as an artist, what you really want to be able to do this is stability. This and for any business wants stability. I mean, you don't want to have your whole everything kind of the rug pulled out from under you. So I think that I think that there was a lot of concern that this place would be like a lot of other places that have been getting bought up, and then they just become storage for somebody's antique car collection, or they become whatever. I mean, these a lot of these places they get bought up, and then you never see the doors open ever again. And I think that I'm not opposed to. I think people should be able to do what they want with their properties. I think that it's a free market and all that stuff. But I do think that for the city, there's a lot of value in having an arts community and arts that are here, that are made here in town. I think that the city's benefited a lot from that cachet that got laid down years and years ago, and I think that figuring out ways to kind of mitigate that, or to slow that exodus
Right.
is
And
huge.
that's what this is about. And I respect property rights as well, but you had mentioned, the city investing in themselves. And some of the comments that I hear along the way was, well, I had to work hard 40 or 50 years ago to get into Laguna. These, artists should have to do the same. Well, if you sit down and really, understand the economic circumstances today and the various economic distortions that have occurred. When I first entered the community and I've owned several properties in town. It's not the same. It is not the same economic set of economic circumstances. So the barriers to entry are far greater than
Yeah.
they were 30, 40, 20 years ago.
Or even 10 years ago.
So the question is, and some of my answers to some of the community members are when they question, the city government's role in these kinds of things. It's, well, cities invest in themselves all the time, and that's the great thing about city government. It's we do have a say. We do get to listen to the community, and there's a direct effect on the community, right, with city government. So, we have parks and there are a variety of other beyond infrastructure. And I understand that infrastructure is always the most important, right? Our fire and police. But let's talk about that just for a moment. So, a lot of our surrounding cities outsource their fire department with Orange County Fire Authority, and their police departments are outsourced to the sheriff
Yeah.
department. Now we have our own police department and our own fire department and our own ambulatory service, right?
And lifeguards.
And lifeguards. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. But why do we have that? We have that because we decided that we wanted it and we wanted to make that investment because it was important to it. So again, it's we could have saved some pennies if we would have outsourced some of those things, but we wanted the exceptional services that comes along with it, with having them, in-house, and we chose to invest in that. So again, you hear cities, there's these tax incentives and for if you bring in an Amazon, to a large city, right? Well, that is a subsidy, right? So cities can invest in themselves. Now, keep in mind that's a subsidy. What we're doing right now with at least these first two properties, it's a simple loan from the city to the land trust. It's due and payable in 5 years. It's 4% interest, so it is a low interest, but that's the same interest that the city would get if it had the money invested. So this is not a gift.
Yeah.
And a lot of the low income or affordable models that you see out there in California today that are being done by the large developers, those are completely subsidized by the government, by the way. So this financial model is not a gift of public funds. It's a loan. And I think that's very important for the community to understand. And that was important to me when we set this model up. And so again, I'm off kind of on a bit, but there's a lot of territory to cover here. And I know that there's a lot of questions that continually get brought up amongst the community. And, of course, the disinformation kind of feeds it and brings up more questions. In reality, they're not relevant because they're not really the questions now, because of the disinformation, aren't being asked on reality. They're being asked based on the disinformation, which is a little frustrating. But and there are some examples up in Northern California, around San Francisco, of some other groups that are trying to do the same thing. And I'm going to say two things. If you read about the up in Oakland and San Francisco, the reason why they're trying to create and bring the artists back into the community is because they have seen a direct economic situation where stores have closed up, restaurants have closed up, and it has affected the town economically. So I think
devaluation.
Right now, that's not my motivation behind this, but I do understand that it is a part of our identity. It's who we are. It's why a lot of us are here, to be honest with you. And I mean, I know that my family, we wouldn't be all that interested in staying around much longer if the town just, became just a vanilla town, just like every other town. I think we would go seek another community that had some special creative vibe to it. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so there's that. The model up Northern California that I mentioned, and then a group of businessmen uh, called me a couple weeks ago and asked if they would meet with me, and they're part of a broader Orange County coalition of corporate leaders, and they were interested in some of what they've been hearing about Laguna and the this housing is that we're talking. I mean, the artist spaces has ignited a conversation within the community, and I've heard people say, "Oh, I feel like there's a renaissance in the arts in the community, and this is this effort is a catalyst to benefit arts in other ways." So anyway, these guys hear about this, they contact me, I go meet with them, and so these guys are CEOs of some pretty big companies. And I asked one of them, I said, so I have to ask you, why are you so involved in this? What's your direct interest in making sure that the arts prosper in Orange County? And he was very straightforward. And he said, well, we need to recruit exceptional talent to run our companies and the executive level. And he said, we cannot recruit that kind of talent if it's not a culturally rich area.
Yeah.
So I thought, wow, that's just, and I guess I knew that, but I didn't, it's not really, top of mind. But again, so you can see there's a direct advantage just, from that level.
Absolutely. Well, I think, and again, this is something I've credited Laguna for in a lot of ways, is to do art and to do these kinds of things, it requires an ecosystem. And, if I was out in the middle of nowhere doing, I don't think I would not be able to do what I've done and to get the kind of caliber of work out there and to be able to make a living off of it. I would say it would be very, very difficult without having a community that supports it, supports it in terms of like, hey, we appreciate this, whatever, also monetarily supporting it, buying stuff for their houses or for public pieces or whatever. And then on top of that, I mean, all the different things that the city does to kind of help make it sustainable. I mean, I think that really the only way to make art sustainable is, and again, I kind of felt this way when I started doing what I do, is if this doesn't make money, it's a very expensive hobby.
Yeah.
And every time that that I've got to tighten my belt, I mean, it is on the chopping block if it's not making money. And so, early on, I kind of came to the conclusion that, hey, this has to make money or else it's not sustainable.
Right.
And I think that that's kind of what you're talking about too, with all this stuff, where, to create an ecosystem where, where it sets it create, where it sets these different artists and different people, the creatives, up for success, where it is sustainable, where they're making money, and it creates that community that then can go off and build that value into the experience that people coming through are able to see. I mean, I think that's really because if the economics aren't behind it, if there's a lot of people that do art and maybe they enjoy doing it, but if they don't, if the economics aren't there, it's not sustainable.
Exactly. Well, and I think you're probably aware of some of the challenges we're having with the Playhouse right now, right? So that is has been brought to the city council's attention with some of the challenges that they're having, but it's directly related to the economics, right?
Yep.
So
Yep. Same thing. I mean, even like the festival, like the attendance at the Festival of the Arts is down, the Pageant of the Masters is down. I mean, all those things. I kind of look at this whole thing as sort of a community thing where, like a rising tide lifts all boats. And, if some of the other artists in town are in this little compound that we're in here, the clients that they have coming by, they walk over to the next studio over, and some of the people that have come here to visit me have gone into the other studios here too and bought other things. And I think it's having that energy and creating those communities. I think it creates opportunities for success for everybody. But yeah, definitely having a situation where you're in a spot where you have a path to success and a path to being able to support yourself as an artist is huge. And
right.
Laguna's provided that for me in a million different ways.
Yeah. So regarding the ecosystem, and you're 100% right. I mean, there's the performing arts and right. So all of the different categories, let's call them, of the arts, it's important to really nurture, the whole ecosystem, let's say. And one of the other pieces of this puzzle is what is being referred to as the stewardship. And I mentioned a bit ago that this financial model for the land trust, the community land trust, was uh, being funded in part by the money coming off of the tourist marketing districts that comes out of the hotels. Well, there's also funds that from that organization that go toward Visit Laguna, right, the old Visitors Bureau. But so that whole organization now, it's been another thing that I've been working very hard on over the last 2 years, is completely pivoted now, and it's what is referred to now as a stewardship model. We didn't invent this. I originally I studied some of the phenomenons that happened globally and some of the pressures that were put on some of these European cities, because the result of destructive tourism. And tourism has an interesting way of chipping away at a region's identity or a city's identity, right? It's not. It just happens on its own, right?
Yeah.
If you don't pay attention to it.
It can
So
be loved to death in a sense.
yeah, or people just so we have the beach, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of people just come to the beach. In the 70s, this is my theory, by the way. In the 70s, a lot of people came to Laguna Beach because there was a fascination, uh, particularly related to the craft movement, because people saw things that were made by folks' hands, and but then what had happened. We started getting into mass production, China and whatnot. And so then some people, I believe over time, became a bit more disconnected from things that were made by hands because they saw the whole production phenomenon. But what I see now, a lot, the whole digital age, and now we have AI, and a lot of media can be replicated through AI and through these new printers that can print amazing, imagery, right? So, but now for like what you do, and I don't know how many of the kids that you talk to, but people like my son, and my son's 28, but his friends, they're all into this new work with your hands phenomenon where they're just completely intrigued by it, right? Because they've grown up in a digital world and that is passe to them now, and they are completely enamored by people like you and your ability, especially you. I mean, everything that you do. I mean, whether it be stone or metal or wood, you kind of cross all of the different materials. But anyway, so that's what's also exciting about where we're headed with these particular spaces that we're looking at, is it does provide space for artists that are doing exactly the kind of the heavier work that you guys are doing. And I think the timing is just perfect for it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and so that just the stewardship model that we're going on is going to refocus on the three pillars that make us who we are, right? Culture, heritage, and environment. That's what the complete focus is now. And it's really about nurturing those things that make us who we are. And so that whole stewardship concept, that's all Visit Laguna is going to do. I think they're even going to drop the visit tagline.
yeah.
And they're all only investing on the things that make us who we are, and because that's all that matters at the end of the day.
I think it's huge. Well, again, I have seen that as well. What you mentioned about, the kind of a little bit of a renaissance in some of the that hands-on stuff. I mean, as AI continues to evolve and get better and better, and there are a lot of things. I mean, God, I would hate to be like a graphic arts person right now, or there's certain things that like AI does very quickly that kind of starts to dilute the market for some of those things. Thankfully, I've gone so far into, into ancient past with blacksmithing and stone carving and wood
Yeah.
carving. The AI is not, it's kind of gone so far in the opposite direction that it doesn't seem like it's going that way. But there's a lot of interest, and there's a lot of people, in town, and young people and stuff that do, again, they're drawn to it. I mean, we have, as long as we've been human, we've been making stuff with our hands. And as long as we've been making stuff with our hands, we've been making art. I mean, there's artwork that goes back 40, 50, 60,000 years that's very developed. So it shows that it's been going on for forever. And so there is that human need for that. And so I think that having those areas in that space, and to have something that creates that connection. I mean, you spoke about all the stuff that, as it kind of got away from that appreciation of the crafts and got into this kind of mass production thing. I mean, we live currently in this throwaway society that, like, things just show up at our front door and we use them for a little bit or whatever. And eventually it just ends up in a landfill,
Yep, you're
and you
right.
see it every time, like, when my grandparents pass away or anybody. I mean, most all that stuff just ends up in a dumpster. And one of the few things that transcends that is good art, and I think that art is one of those few things that has that ability to kind of connect with us and be part of our experience. And even like the feedback I've gotten for some of the public pieces I've done, like that octopus up above Divers Cove. I mean, there's people that come up to me, they go, "Hey, every day I start my day and I go up and I pat it on the head."
Yes.
And it shows because it's polished. I mean, it's
Right,
like
yeah.
it's that bronze is polished. So
Kinda
it's
like the Buddha.
exactly. So it's,
Yeah,
it's like the Buddha's belly, it
yeah.
is polished on the top. So, I think that there is a lot of value to that. And to have that as part of the whole thing. Now, obviously, there's everybody's got different there's I've always kind of thought there's three different types of people. There's in terms of art. There's people that don't notice art, they walk right by it, they don't even see it. There's people that like art for the aesthetics of it, and there's people that feel it when they see it, that actually get an emotional like connection to it. And there's all types. And so I've found that, especially with public art, um, you're never batting 1,000. There's always somebody out there that doesn't, whatever it is. There's people that like it or love it or hate it or are indifferent or whatever. And so, there's always going to be, you know, feedback of all types for all
Extreme
these different.
opinions.
There's always extreme opinions,
That's
right?
what makes art so great,
Yeah,
really.
but I mean, even that, like getting into like again, like with your mission and what you've been working towards doing. I mean, there's obviously there's people that are opposed to the city using city funds to loan this stuff, and just the perception of all these things. And there are some arguments for all these things. And but I do think, again, getting back to investing in the world that we want to live in, I think that I think it was a the timing on, at least on these compounds here. If these would have gone, I mean, these are some of the very few remaining compounds. So I mean, for doing, you know like loud, messy, big art.
Yes.
So I think that the timing on this, and for the city to step up and do it, is, in my opinion, is very admirable. I guess some of the concerns that some of the artists have, again, every artist just, or every craftsman, all the people that are in these places are mostly looking for stability, because that's what every business needs, right? Is a stable workplace. As this kind of goes, and you mentioned that it might eventually become a live work housing kind of thing. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns, down the line for some of this stuff. When it becomes is it in those models, because for like low income housing, right? If you're in low income housing and you're there, and then you eventually make more money, you earn more or whatever, you kind of are, now you're kind of no longer applicable for that, and you have to go move somewhere else at a certain point. With Laguna being the way that it is, where there's really not anywhere to move to, in these models, if this becomes something where it's like a low income housing kind of model, if I am working and doing a bunch of stuff and the art business is successful, which is what we all want for all of our artists, would the artists that are successful then be basically booted out of these workspaces to make room for people that are, you know, not making as much money? But then again, then we lose those successful artists that are kind of the ones that are maybe, bringing a little bit more international acclaim to the arts community here, because then they don't have anywhere to even go.
Right. So, and by the way, when I ran my the visiting artist program for many years down at 7 Degrees, uh, that was part of my whole consideration, right? A lot of these guys, they'd come make a proposal and then they were subsidized, right? I gave them a stipend and then they worked on a particular project for a period of time. And what I wanted for that, the reason what was behind that is I wanted success. I wanted them to move on. And there are quite a few of the artists that did come before us and participate in that program that are wildly successful today. So it
That's
worked.
awesome.
And we can talk about that maybe at another podcast. So a couple of things. When we selected the board members, there was a consideration to have some of the resident artists be on the board. I think that that's very important. Bob Whalen, City Council member Bob Whalen, were a bit hesitant at the time because we thought that there might be a conflict of interest. So keep in mind that we're a bit hypersensitive being in our positions that we're in. So we thought, well, after we only appointed 7 board members, the bylaws allow for more. So I do, in a lot of you said affordable housing models, there's actually a requirement for some of the residents of a housing to be on the board. It's kind of like our community clinic. I was on the board of the community clinic, and their model allows for it's a mandatory that some people that are patients have to be on the board. I think that's essential, by the way. And you and I, before we started, went live with the podcast today, talked about. I brought up, maybe there's another coalition of artists brought together to form another organization that's more specifically related to some of the direct needs of artists that's outside of a land trust. And I think that that's going to be a conversation that is had. So, and by the way, I'm not walking away from this effort. I fully intend, whether I'm on council or not, I intend to be involved and be a voice in this. I think that your question regarding, how to deal with that is a good one. And let me give you an example of an idea that I have to deal with it. So let's just say let's say it's 50-50. And let's say there's 50% of the artists are, not able to, they're of modest means and their art and their careers haven't taken off and they're still in need of a partial subsidy. And then there's 50% of them that have become wildly successful and are doing well. And you're right. We don't want to just say, well, you're doing well, you have to leave. So in my mind, there are some models and some considerations. So a tax exempt entity can ask the county assessor to be tax exempt for property tax. And I've done this in my life when I worked with LCAD. I had a property and LCAD leased a portion of it, and that portion that I leased to them was tax exempt, and the other portion was not. So I see an opportunity where it's like, okay, you guys get the property tax relief benefit, these 50%, and these 50% don't. So I think that there's a lot of ways we can address what you're talking about, because the goal is, let's put affordability to the side for a moment, is to maintain a healthy art environment in the community. So let's dive just a bit further. Is it going to work if the community is only supporting financially challenged artists? Well, it's not, is it?
Yeah.
Now, isn't it more healthy for artists that are successful to be mentored, to mentor the folks that are up and coming, right? And what a better way to mentor them if they're together and working in a close-knit community, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned an ecosystem. So a part of a healthy ecosystem is the variety, right? So again, this is a work in progress as far as the formalities, let's call them, and of the land trust, and there's going to be various voices, that are going to be a part of that evolution. So,
I think it's okay. That answers that question in a good way. Yeah, I mean, I like that because again, as somebody that's now been doing this for a while, I've been doing the art, selling it for about 20 years now, and things are going well. And again, like you'd hate to have your success, preclude you from being able to work in the area where you want to work. And same thing. I mean, I look back at when I was starting out, and even now, I mean, there's so many different people that I have learned stuff from and continue to learn stuff from, and even asking, just walking down to the shop next door or down the way or whatever. There's a lot of resources for that, and as somebody that never studied art in school, never did anything like that, that's been a huge education. I mean, the education I've gotten from just other artists here in the canyon has been incredible.
Yeah. It's interesting. As we were coming up with the financials for the properties through the due diligence, we were talking about, a reserve for maintenance and things of that nature. And were there any deferred maintenance, and were there any accessibility issues that needed to be dealt with? And, I would bring up from time to time, well, the way that they're being managed now, these properties, especially the one down the street, the artist handle all that stuff. And for some of the folks that have joined the board, I think that was a bit difficult for them to get their arms around. But one of the things that I want to continue to emphasize, we're a small community, and that's what I love about, serving on council, is the fact that we are a small community. And I think we really need to take a community approach to this and realize, I think that, that I had Dave Ship, as part of the advisory group, and he's a general contractor. And he's like, yeah, let me get me and my guys, and we'll roll up our sleeves and we'll come in and pitch in, right? So I want to remind folks too that this, I believe, what's going to make it work is that it can be a true community effort. Whether it be improving some of the properties, maintaining them, whether it be just, some new relationships formed. Maybe Dave says, hey, I'd like to bring up my kids. They're enamored by the work that you do. Would you mind spending 45 minutes with them and walking them through it? I just think that there's a lot of opportunity to bring the community together and work together.
That's one of the things I love about Laguna. I mean, it is still a small community, and I like being able. I mean, all the different people that are bringing different things to the table. I mean, even just here in the canyon, like I try to keep if I'm going to go do something or buy something or have something made or whatever. I mean, I like to try and keep that ecosystem within this area, because first off, I feel like I get more value because it's people that are vested in. They're here. They're going to be around. They're not. It's not some fly by night thing that's gone. They're part of the community already.
Right.
And then there's a lot of intangibles. And like you said, I mean, being able to bring, for me, again, I learned blacksmithing, all this stuff from a guy named David Burnetta, who was an artist in one of these in the compound over just down the way over there, and he's a brilliant guy, kind of a Da Vinci kind of guy. He could do everything, but he's always behind on projects and all that stuff. So on my days off from lifeguarding, I'd go down and just help grinding and doing whatever, right? And I learned so much from all that. And I think that there's, I've guys like him and some of these other people. I mean, I've learned a ton from all these people over the years. So I try to kind of, when people come by and go, hey, like, I've got some questions, or my kid's interested in this, or, whatever. I mean, I try to, make time for people, because people have made a lot of time for me. Yeah. And I think that's really that's getting back to what you're saying, where we're all part of a community. It's a tribe, and we're all part of the same culture here, in sense of that we're all here in Laguna as part of Laguna.
Yeah, it's interesting, as some of the community members, as we've been moving forward with the land trust and this acquisition, have come to me with some direct questions. And I said, well, let's go. And you've probably seen me walking around several times. So I would offer to meet them up here and walk them around, just to answer some of their questions. And every single time, that I've brought a community member that hasn't, really aren't familiar with what's happening up here, they're in awe of what you guys are up to up here, all the different artists. And even though I guess they knew that what was happening, but they didn't really know, right? Once they come in and peek into your space and see what's really happening, The same actually happens too, by the way. I'm going to give a little bit of a shout out to LCAD. Yeah. When people go to the Big Bend campus and see really what LCAD is up to up there, I don't think the community truly understands what LCAD is up to, and the quality of what they're offering as far as education is. So, yeah.
Well, I think that gets to the next thing, is kind of, again, I mean, this community has a long history of the arts. And, a lot of people that we've known over the year, I mean, there's a lot of people have left that were part of that time period. Obviously, they're either passed away or moved away or can't afford to be here anymore. And then as new people come in, I mean, I think it's I think it's an important thing for people to kind of at least have the opportunity to kind of get to know what that part of Laguna's history is, and to be able to kind of maybe or maybe not develop an appreciation for it. I mean, a lot of the people I talk to that are here in town have never been to the Pageant of the Masters, like a huge percentage of the
Wow,
people.
that's amazing.
And it's just right there, and maybe that's not for everybody, but it's I think that there's a lot of stuff that's kind of here right in front of us all the time that you almost take it for granted, or everybody's so busy doing everything. But I think, figuring out ways to kind of to kind of create that engagement that allows people to feel value for stuff, and if you don't really know that it's there and you don't really know what's happening there, then there's really not something that you value, in the same way that, like, if I never go down to the beach and never look in the tide pools and never really like see what's there, like it's no big loss if it's not there anymore, because I've never really had a connection with it,
Right.
right? And so, I mean, I would say, Laguna. I mean, the things that to me always kind of are some of the corners, the pillars of what I love about Laguna is our coastline and the arts. And both of those things are things that, fortunately, I've been able to interact with quite a bit. But I think that not everybody either does or knows how to, or has even been kind of walked down that path. And I think that that's something that, in some ways, it's the education and that engagement kind of creates that love and that appreciation for it.
And, and I would agree with that. And I do think that we have some opportunities now. I'm going to tie it back into this stewardship effort, focusing on the three pillars that make us who we are: culture, environment, and heritage. And, I just little things. And I know you guys have done open studio tours in the past. And I know that the pageant, their sales had gone down last year, and we know the playoffs, but is having some issues. But I do think there's an opportunity right now to get a lot of that element of the community associated and bring them into the creative culture. And I've even talked to LCAT about it. Said, we got to get some more tours going up here. People need to be more familiar with what you're doing. So I think that we can put some effort into that, and I
Yeah.
think it's crucial. You grew up in town?
I grew up around town, so my family was from here. So my grandparents were here, but my parents, when I was 5, moved down to San Diego, down
Okay.
to Jamul. I don't know if you ever heard of Jamul,
Uh-uh.
rural part of San Diego. So it's
Okay.
kind of up in the hills a little bit. So I'd be there during the year, and then in the summer times, I'd be up
Okay.
here all summer with my grandparents. And then I started lifeguarding when I was 16. So once
So you didn't graduate from the high school?
I didn't go to the high school here. No, I never went to school here.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
so
my son didn't go to school here. He went to J. Sarah, but
yeah.
my wife's daughter and son went here. Her son would have. I wish I would have known you back then. He was just so interested in all this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the metal and everything. He was a great. It's sad that he's passed away.
Yeah. I've been kind of trying to figure out, because you brought that up. And I really think that again, I mean, even with art sales, right? Like, I'm not going to wait around for the festival to market for me or somewhere else. We have to take charge. Like, as an artist, you really have to take charge of you're in charge of your own destiny. I think a big part of what we do is educate our audience on, educate people on what we do. And that's how you show, why it matters and why there's value and why all that stuff. And so, with social media and with all that stuff, I mean, it's never been a better time to educate people on, hey, this is why this matters, and here's the process. Here's all the blacksmithing, here's the carving, and here's what goes into making these big pieces, and that's why it costs what it costs.
Yeah, I need to introduce you to Joanne from Visit Laguna. So she used to work for she was the general manager of Surf and Sand, and I've known her
Yeah.
forever and ever and ever. And she's just a very competent person. So I was able to hire her
That's great.
to run Visit Laguna as a part of this whole thing, the stewardship thing. And so her and I actually had a call yesterday with Aspen, Colorado. And the reason I wanted to talk to the woman who runs their program, so they did the same thing. Their whole visit organization transferred into a stewardship model, just like what we're
I
doing.
like that. Well, the visit thing, I mean, they were so effective at what they did
Yeah.
that it almost
Well,
worked against
it was the
themselves.
wrong audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and so that, by the way, happened during, and I get it, everybody makes mistakes, but during COVID, the city and the chamber went to Visit Laguna, the woman that ran it at the time, and said, "Can you help us?" And she wasn't that qualified, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And so she would go take pictures of the coves and do all that stuff and put it on social media, thinking that that's what
Yeah.
what
Well,
helped.
it's compelling. I mean, the coves, the coastline here is beautiful.
Yeah, it is, but you get my point. It's
No, yeah,
not what we needed to focus
it can be
on.
loved to death.
Eh,
Yeah.
yeah. And so what that in Colorado, so one of the things that fascinates me is right, it's a ski resort.
Mhm.
And how is it that they got the arts to flourish up there the way they did is fascinating. If you ever get the chance,
Oh,
pay some
interesting.
attention.
Yeah.
It is a very culturally intense community now. So
Interesting.
how'd that happen? They don't have a lot of cities around them,
Yeah.
right? So they don't have that, but they focused and nurtured it and paid so much attention to it. They developed this huge creative culture in that community.
Wow.
And so that's why I've been talking to the woman who runs that operation, because I'm trying to learn from her.
I think that's great.
So it's like, well, we can do the same thing. So we know people want to come for the ocean, people want to go to ski,
Yep.
but how is it that they still were able to build their,
On top of the primary the other the
and a
skiing
lot
or
of
the
people
ocean
in
or
town
whatever.
tell me,
Yeah.
"Oh, Mark, you're wasting your time. People just want to go to the beach." I don't believe it, and that's a
Yeah.
perfect example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People want to go to the beach, but they also want to have all the other layers. I mean, you add layers. It's like anything. It's like
Yeah.
you don't want to have a single layered anything.
Right.
And so, I mean, you go to the beach, have a great day at the beach, go to the Fest of the Arts, go to the Pageant of the Masters, go see, and all these different things. I mean, what an experience for people.
Yeah.
It's a layered experience.
It is layered, truly. And one of the interesting things that she shared with me yesterday is they actually pulled back on their luxury kind of whole um, approach toward luxury, because it was getting to where the airport was just full of Learjets and it was just too much. And it again, it's about the layers, right? It's about
Yeah.
the diversity, the economic diversity, everything. You need it all
Yeah. Yeah.
to make the arts really work. And so I mean, even their ballet program is huge. Their playhouse, their arts, everything is just amazing up there.
Oh, that's great.
And it's like, well, if they can do it, we can do it.
Absolutely. Well, I like I said, I really appreciate everything you're doing here, and I think it's a noble mission, and anything I can do to help on my end or any of the other artists, I'm sure would be happy to. I mean, I
Yeah.
think we're all in this together, and I think to kind of invest in this future that we all want to see is going to take all of us.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
But the future looks bright, and I think that there's an opportunity for us to all start to working together again, or not again. But I think there was a period of time. I remember when I first started 7 Degrees, and we were working with the museum and the Playhouse. There was a lot more collaborative efforts back then, and I think we need to get back to that,
Yeah.
and not. I think a lot of our institutions, I feel a bit as though they compete with one another, and maybe it's because they're competing for dollars.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'd like to kind of clear the runway a bit and try to bring everybody back together. And you mentioned earlier, rising tide lifts all boats. And
I
that's
truly
true.
believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really seeing success in other artists is good for everybody.
It
It's
really is.
good. I love seeing other artists be successful because it also it leads to success for me and
Yeah.
everybody else. In my opinion.
Yeah.
So no, I think
Well,
this
now
is
you've
great.
opened the door, so I'm going to drag you into this, and you're going to be a big part of the conversation.
All
So
right.
I'd like to create and we can start informal to start, but I'd like to make sure that the artists are all together communicating. And one of the things to keep in mind, you mentioned it, you've everything that you've said during this conversation, you get you're spot on. And you talked about levels, and there's levels of art, and there's the crafts, and then there's fine art, and so on and so forth, different varieties, different mediums. And, you know, it used to be some of those different categories would overly criticize another category or this or that, is this really this and
Yeah.
whatever. But I think we need to set that aside and just really respect creative endeavor,
Yep.
and just embrace that notion and then and focus on that.
I think we're all in this together,
Yes.
and we're all in the same team here. So I think that those notions, like you mentioned, those are should definitely be past tense,
Yeah.
because we're all in this together. And I
Yeah.
think that there's a huge need for arts, creativity, craft, all of it to continue
Yeah.
and to continue to thrive.
And a lot of opportunity for kids now. I think that we all know that there's been, you know, the universities are looking into different, approaches toward education. And, not everybody can go to school for business or for marketing. And I think we got a little oversaturated with some of that. And
Yeah.
now we see a lot of the kids that are interested in using their hands or getting into, even just the regular trades, right? And nowadays, I think that you're finding that you can probably make more money in HVAC or a plumber than you can.
That's with AI, especially. It's the way it's kind of looking. I mean, again, you never know what the future holds, but I do think that it's important for people to I think doing art is, and I say this to a lot of people that come by. I mean, doing sculpture work with what I'm doing here, I think a lot of it just comes down to problems. Most of what I do in a day is problem solving, and figuring out solutions to these problems that I've created for myself, right? But having practice and getting adept at solving problems is good across everything you're ever going to do in your life, because no matter what line of work you're in, there's problems and you've got to solve them.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And so art's just one, another way of doing that. And so I think that there is a lot of value in people doing art, not just for themselves, but also, I mean, again, it's a way. Anytime you do art, you're having to solve problems that there's no playbook for. So creative problem solving. I mean, again, the business of the future is going to require a lot of creative
That's
problem
a very
solving.
good point. That's a very good point. Yeah.
So
Because it's not a repetitive of the same thing over and over. Every situation is unique and has its own circumstances.
there's no playbook for it. So I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of the tools that I use are tools that I've had to invent for
Mhm.
what I'm doing. A lot of the techniques I've had to kind of invent based on seeing other things, or maybe picking different things apart and kind of reconstructing it. But it's creative problem solving. And I
Yeah.
think for kids, I mean, God, as a parent, there's nothing I would want more for my kids than for them to be good problem solvers.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
in school, I mean, gosh, if they get that out of school, then that's great. If they get that out of life, that's great too.
Yeah. No, I agreed 100%. So it's exciting. This is very inspirational conversation. Thanks so much for inviting me to be a part of this. And I hope we can have, other conversations as we start to move forward and bring more people into the conversation.
Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming down today. This has been super fun talking with you, and thank you for taking the time. I know you're really busy,
Oh,
and
it's my pleasure.
it's been nice
No,
just to
I can
discuss
talk about this.
project.
This is what I live for. So anytime, let me
All
know.
right, well, we'll do this again.
Okay.
Thank
great.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
All right, thanks for joining me today. This has been a really fun getting to have these discussions. If you want to get the podcast out there and share it with your friends, I'd really appreciate it. And please like and subscribe. These are fun and important conversations with creatives, and I think it's great to get it out there with our community. So thank you very much.